Hello and welcome to this tkinter tutorial. My name is Aditya and I'll be introducing you to tkinter. To start, let's define what tkinter is. It's a module in Python that lets you create graphical user interfaces. And to use it, just like any other module in Python, you have to import it. Now, tkinter is part of the standard library of Python, so you don't need to install it separately. All right. So, I'd like you to follow along with this tutorial by creating a Python file and coding with me. So I'm going to wait a second for you to create a Python file. All right, I'm assuming now that you've created a Python file. To verify that everything is working correctly with your tkinter module, that is, everything is configured correctly, you can run the function tk._test and it tests the pop-up of your window. It shows you the version of tkinter you're on and it tests button clicking and quitting your window. But those are the main functions of tkinter. It allows you to create windows. It allows you to define various widgets in them, like a button. There are other types of widgets like labels, pictures, everything that every object inside a window is a widget. Let me backtrack a bit. You've heard of the operating system Windows, right? Why is it called Windows? Because everything on a PC on your screen, you see it's a window. That is to say, it's some patch of the pixels, some X by Y portion of the pixels that's controlled on your screen by some application. We call that patch on your screen a window. This is the VS Code window. And the Windows operating system manages Windows. That's why it's called Windows. And inside Windows, you have these things called widgets, which are objects that you can interact with and subsequently have them perform some action for you. For example, if I press this file widget, then it'll take me to the file that has this label. Cool. And by the end of this tutorial, you should be able to create widgets of your own and windows of your own and define their behaviors. Continue. I'm going to assume that you've run this and verified that your tkinter is configured properly. Let me just run it for you and show you how it looks. Boom, it looks like this. If that happens, then everything's working for you. Quit. Brilliant, we have quit. Now, after I quit, did you notice an empty window popped up? What is that empty window? Well, that empty window and all windows defined by tkinter are instances of the class tk. That empty window in this case was root, and it popped up because we ran root.main loop. If you want a window to show up, you run window.main loop. So let's see that again. We have created an empty window here. It has no label, it has no widgets, it has no dimensions, nothing. It'll just pop up as defined. So first we're running that tk.test Hey, hooray, it works. Now we've got an empty window. And you can see on the empty window that the default name of your window is tk. And this feather here is a default specific to Windows, though it doesn't show up in Mac. And then you have the typical functions of a window, even if you create an empty window, because this is handled by your operating system. This will be different for Mac. In Mac, you'll have a different setup, traffic lights. Oh, and you can quit a window like this also. What I'd like you to notice is that my Python file is still running because this window is open. And typically, if I have widgets on this window that do things, then they'll do things based on functions I've defined in my Python file. That's why my Python file is still open. When I click on hypothetical widgets, those widgets will call functions here, which will execute and show some output on the screen here. Brilliant. Let's continue. Now I'd like you to notice when I press close over here, my Python file will stop. It will stop executing. You see that? A new line, meaning this Python file is no longer being executed. Brilliant. Moving on. Let's go over some simple things in tkinter. We already covered this class in tkinter. It helps you create windows. There are other classes in tkinter. Label, it helps you create labels. Button, it helps you create buttons. And so on. There are many classes in tkinter. You will end up learning about many of them through this course. Now, let's go over how to give a title to your window. Well, as you would imagine, there's a method for that. Here I've imported tkinter. I've commented out the part where I'm testing tkinter itself. And I'm just creating a new window, root, init of the main window. And I'm giving it a title by saying root.title simple app. So on the top somewhere here of our window, it should say simple app. Then what I'm doing here is unimportant. Let's ignore that for now. I'll get back to it later. Then I made a function, onClick. What does onClick do? It configures our label. It changes the text of our label to say clicked instead of hello, as the comment indicates. Now you might be wondering, on click of what? Well, we're going to define a button, and to that button we're going to bind this function so that whenever that button is clicked, it executes this function. By the way, config is a method on label that lets you change many things, not just text, and we'll go over them later. Now here I'm creating a button named button, and it's an instance of the class button. I know, everybody is very shocked. But these are some things that you need to know before you create more complex functions and graphical user interfaces. Sorry, why did I say functions? Anyway, button, like label, takes its first input as the window in which it will exist. So label exists in root, so does button. Then, like text and like label, it also takes an input called text. This will be the text on your button. Button takes a third input called command. And here we've passed our function on click. Notice this is the object, the function itself, not its executed form. So it's not this, it's the function. Excuse me. And then we're doing something with both our button and our label. We're specifying its position in our window using the grid method. The label I'm adding to row 0 and column 0. The button I'm adding to row 0 and column 1. So the button should show up next to the label. Then we're running root.main loop and hopefully everything works. Let's see. You just press save there. And boom, we have a window. Now, if I resize this window a little bit, you can see, oh, okay, hooray. It did in fact take the title Simple App, and it does in fact have a label, hello. We'll see how to change this label later to be more than just a piece of text so much. And we also have a button that says click me, just like we configured it. See here, it says click me. And if you remember, we had binded our button to a function onClick that does, well, that changes the label to say clicked. And boom, once you've clicked me, see clicked. Congratulations, you've created your first application. We will continue this tutorial in a future episode.